Hi, would you like to learn how to describe line graphs in English? Welcome to Jen's Jyugyou. My name is Jen, and today I'm going to teach you some important vocabulary and tips to describe line graphs in English. Specifically, the tips in today's lesson will help you to get a higher band on IELTS Writing Task 1. Let's begin by talking about different vocabulary that you can use to describe movement on a line graph. First, let's talk about some vocabulary you can use for sections of a line graph that don't move. If you see a straight line that's not going up or down, you can use the vocabulary word that it remained, and then you can say it remained stable, or it remained constant, it remained consistent. If you use these descriptions, it means that there was no change. Sometimes when you're looking at a graph, you don't see a really big line going up or a really big line going down. You might just see a line that goes up and down really quickly. In this case, we would use the verb fluctuated. So we can say that the data or the numbers are fluctuating. If the line goes down on the graph, some important verbs that we can use to describe this are decline, or drop, or decrease, dip, or fall. Those are excellent verbs which will help to describe a downward trend on a line graph. To describe an upward trend, where you see the line and the line graph moving up, some useful verbs that you can use are increase, climb, grow, and rise. To get a higher band on IELTS, it's an excellent idea to use adverbs together with these verbs to describe the movement. By adding some adverbs in your writing, it will help to show that you are more fluent in English. When we want to describe an upward trend or a downward trend, where we can see the line moving very slowly, it's moving a little up or a little bit down, we can use adverbs such as slowly, steadily, slightly, or gradually to describe the line moving slowly in a certain direction. If we want to describe an upward trend or a downward trend where we can see the line moving very quickly, we can see a big difference in the upward trend or the downward trend. 4 useful adverbs you could use to describe this movement is rapidly, significantly, sharply, and dramatically. In your writing, if you want to give specific facts, specific numbers from looking at the chart, you can put the verb, the adverb, and then by plus a number or percentage. Meat consumption sharply increased by 20%. The number of viewers significantly increased by approximately 20 each day. A pro tip to get an even higher band on IELTS and show the examiners that you are fluent in English is to alternate between using the verb plus adverb combinations that we talked about, and instead use adjective plus noun combinations. So all of the verbs that I mentioned so far for the vocabulary in this lesson, you can change them into nouns. And all of the adverbs that I mentioned can easily be changed into adjectives, and you can put the adjective with a noun to have the exact same meaning as a verb plus an adverb. But by alternating this type of grammar structure, it shows that you have a broader understanding of English and gives you an opportunity to use a variety of different English expressions so that you can avoid repetition in your writing. It steadily increased is the same as there was a steady increase. There was a dramatic decline. It declined dramatically. It rose dramatically. There was a dramatic rise. Now that you have some basic vocabulary to help describe the trends that you see in line charts, let's take a look at some useful advice on how you can describe them for specifically IELTS Writing Task 1 on the Academic IELTS test. The very first thing you need to do is read it, look at it, and make sure you understand the information. Read the title first so that you know what kind of information you expect to find and see in the chart. Specifically for IELTS though, there's usually a sentence at the top of the page which will give details about the chart. Make sure you read that sentence so that you understand what you're going to be looking at. After having read the description and the title, then you have two main points you need to look at. Look at the y-axis. The y-axis is the vertical line like this, and there should be some kind of number written there. Find out and look at and see, what do those numbers represent? Are they representing percentages, numbers of people, number of hours, grams or kilometers? What are those numbers representing? Make sure you understand that information on the y-axis. Then, along the bottom of the line chart, we have what's called the x-axis. Along the x-axis, there will be some other kind of data. Usually, for IELTS, this data will help to represent time, days or hours or months or weeks, or there's some other kind of information that you're using to compare. So in step 1, make sure you understand this information. You don't need to specifically look at every single line on the line graph for the step 1. Just make sure you have a basic understanding from looking at the title, if there's a description, the description, the information on the y-axis, the information on the x-axis. Make sure you understand that, and then you can move on to step 2. Step 2 is to write an introduction sentence. In this introductory sentence, you need to say what the graph is about. State what the graph shows, what information, the main topic of the graph, you need to explain in the first sentence. On IELTS specifically, usually there is a short description of the graph. Don't just copy that, but what you should do is rephrase or paraphrase that description. Conveniently, I have created an exact formula that will help you to write amazing introductory sentences for IELTS Writing Task 1 when you need to describe graphs and charts. First, you start with this graph or this chart. You can also say the name of the chart, this line chart, this bar graph, this pie chart. Whatever type of chart or graph you're looking at, you could put the name in the introduction. So this chart, this line graph, shows, but usually on the IELTS test itself, it uses the word shows. So you want to be able to demonstrate to the examiner that you have a better vocabulary and aren't just copying the word shows, because there's many other great verbs in English. So you should use a synonym of the word shows. For example, demonstrates, illustrates, displays, depicts. After your synonym for shows, you need to clearly state what the topic of this line graph is. So to help you do that, you should summarize specifically the information that is in your y-axis. After talking about the main topic in the y-axis, then you need to include the information from the x-axis. Use the specific grammar patterns from this point to this point. So from January to December, from 12 a.m. to 1 p.m. You could also use the grammar structure between the starting time and the ending time. So between January and December, between 2019 and 2021. You could also use the expression over a period of, and then put the number and time period. So over a period of 5 years, over a period of 10 weeks, over a period of 2 days, over a period of 5 hours. You could also use the expression during a span of. So during a span of 5 years, during a span of 2 weeks, during the span of 5 days. Those are 4 useful ways that you can talk about the time, which is usually what is being represented on the x-axis in a line chart. So that is the formula for helping to paraphrase what the chart is about. Let's take a look at a few examples. This graph shows the amount of coronavirus cases in Canada since the pandemic began in March. This graph displays the number of daily COVID-19 cases in Canada between March 2020 and January 2021. This graph shows the number of hours people spent watching 3 different YouTube videos on Jen's Jyugyou over a period of 90 days. This line graph shows the amount of time viewers spent watching 3 different videos about Canada over a period of 3 months. The graph below shows the consumption of fish and some different kinds of meat in a European country between 1979 and 2004. The graph illustrates changes in the amounts of beef, lamb, chicken, and fish eaten by a particular European country during a span of 25 years. We spent a lot of time on the introductory sentence because it is the most important sentence and the very first thing that the examiners will read. After you have written the introductory sentence, then you need to write an overview or a summary about what you see in the chart. So like a bird's eye view of what kind of general trends you notice within that chart. During this small little paragraph, a sentence or two, don't mention specific numbers. The idea of this little paragraph is just to give a general overview of what types of trends you have noticed. So you should discuss if you see things increasing overall or decreasing overall, or are they remaining steady, or are they rapidly fluctuating? What is the general thing that you see when you just zoom out and look at the graph overall? It's a good idea to start this summary or overview sentence with a type of transition. The best transition for this, I think, would be overall with a comma and then write what you see as the general trend. Overall, COVID-19 numbers seem to be increasing. Overall, the number of hours watched has fluctuated daily. Although the consumption of chicken has increased, the consumption of other meats has decreased during this time period. Then, the next step, step 4, is to write 1 or 2, or if you really want, 3 paragraphs containing actual facts and data and information. So here's where you can use the vocabulary that we previously talked about. You could say there was a slight increase by 20%, or there was a dip by about 200 people, or there was an increase of 5,000 cases over the last several months. Provide specific examples and exact details in those paragraphs. This is step 4. Step 5. At this point, you should be finished writing, but you need to go back and check your work. Obviously, you will check to make sure your spelling is correct, your grammar is correct, maybe fix up some of those adjective, noun, and verb, adverb combinations I mentioned. And also make sure that you have followed the IELTS directions. You need to write 150 words, at least 150 words. At least means that you can write more. So it's actually a good idea to aim for more. In your mind, instead of thinking it must be 150, think maybe 170 is good. If you write less than 150, it's bad. If you write 300 or 400, you're writing too many and you're gonna run out of time. Because the test specifically tells you that this writing task should only take you about 20 minutes. If you have followed these 5 steps and use the vocabulary from this lesson, you will get a higher band on IELTS. And now it's time for question of the day. Today's question is, When are you going to take your IELTS test? Or if you've already taken it, when did you take the IELTS test? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this lesson. If you found it useful, please subscribe to Jen's Jyugyou and give this video a thumbs up. Good luck with your English studies. See you in the next lesson.